Skip the preambles.
Okay, so I guess if you've clicked on this video, you know who Tony is. And you'll also know the most discussed aspect of The Sopranos is always the ending. As Tony sat at the diner with his family and the screen blacked out. What happened? Was Tony killed? Was it Zelensky? Long John Silver maybe? Or did life just carry on as normal? What does the ending mean? For sure, I have never really been too interested in discussing this show's ending, and I sense that people are starting to get bored. Discussions on the ending, they died on the vine, petered out. I made a video on it some time ago, which was basically a compilation of everything David Chase publicly said on the ending, a video which is now out of date as he's spoken about it multiple times since. For me, discussions on the ending was somewhat redundant.
I don't want to talk about that situation ever again with anybody.
Because I always felt it didn't matter whether Tony died or not, or who had him popped. For me, the ending surmised that Tony Soprano was finished, every which way but loose. He had way too many enemies, his loyal circle were dead, and he had Carlo's testimony hanging over him. As he says himself, there's only two endings for a guy like him, jail or dead. Plus, he has completely lost his humanity by the end of the season. This is more important. The final scene harks back to Tony's dinner with his family in the season 1 finale, where he tells them to remember the little moments. AJ makes a callback to this, which Tony doesn't even remember and assumes is sarcasm. Even Junior, with his mind rotting from dementia, still remembers the little moments.
We used to play catch.
Tony has wronged so many people, by the time someone does have him killed, it doesn't matter who it was because so many people were justified in wanting him gone. Tony Soprano is finished, and he doesn't even have Melfi's therapy sessions anymore to slow the toxicity process. In any case though, the ending of The Sopranos is still worth discussing. Using the technique of positive visualization, I do feel Tony bought it in the end. And rather than present a case of what I thought happened, I made a video compiling all the major ending theories and highlighting the evidences. Did Rhiannon have something to do with it? Was Little Carmine pulling the strings? Could multiple theories be true at the same time? As in, maybe New York put out a hit on Tony and yet Eugene's wife's hitman got there first. Check out that video I did on the ending, plus a bonus one I did on Eugene's connection with the ending theory. This is the best theory on The Sopranos' ending, in my opinion. The most logical conclusion as to who did Tony in. One of the reasons is that it is explicitly stated in the show. We're not going into the unknown not knowing. There's no mental gymnastics required to come to this conclusion. We decapitate and do business with what's left, as Phil Leotardo says at one point. They got redundant upper management, bleeds off half the kick, take them out and absorb the whole thing, as Butch says at another. Plus, need I mention that one of the original endings of the show had Tony whacked by New York? The point being is that Tony getting killed by the Lupitazis has always been in the air. Phil planned it. Butchie tried to do it during the war. It's stated in the show and is planned, unlike other theories. It's just a matter of whether New York went through with it and who was involved. Silvio even says at one point that people are being swayed to new management. You don't need to be San Tzu to feel it's the most plausible theory. It has connective tissue from previous events and would work for several reasons, not least because it feels organic and something realistic, for reasons I will discern in time. So let's take a look at the evidences and motivations for each of the three characters, starting with Butch. In this video, I'm not too interested in symbolisms and dreams, though I will talk about that kind of stuff a bit. I'm more focused on character motivations and tangible evidences. Now, I've already made a video on why Butchie sold out Phil.
Thank you. That was great.
So I won't go into that, but Butch had his eyes everywhere. He saw that the war was costly and he had battle fatigue. He may have made a truce with Tony in their sit down and backed off, but Butch had plenty of reasons for wanting Tony dead. I mean, he straight up hates the guy, as shown by his general demeanor towards Mr. Taipei personality, whether at Phil's house with the drills, when he squares up to Tony at the hospital, and the mere fact that Tony pointed a gun at his face and threatened him during the Coco beatdown. In a world where throwing food at someone has to be resolved, this was a major event that went unpunished. And remember, Butch was don-ho about killing Tony when talking with Phil. It was he who was really pushing it at a time where even Mr. Pavlavi was unwilling to cause dysentery in the ranks. Also, Butch may have heard through the grapevine that Tony was about to go down on a RICO case, and it would be in the best interest of New York if Tony was taken out to avoid him flipping, which, as I discussed in a previous video, is more likely than not by the end of the show. It's interesting to ponder whether it was always the plan to take out Tony, even with the final sit-down, with Butch wanting to clean up the bad blood in the families by taking out the two petty warring personalities, Phil and then Tony, or whether New York made a decision after the hit on Phil. After all, when you ostensibly lose a war to some pygmy thing, and the boss of one of the 5 families is shot in front of his family and has his face crushed so his mother can't give him an open casket at his funeral, you gotta respond, for your own sake. The rank and file, and even the other 4 families would demand satisfaction, so Butch would give the go-ahead on Tony Soprano. As a side note, I don't see Butch lasting as boss. He's just a gangster, I suppose, a grunt who'll get replaced after being found on a sidewalk in a pool of his own blood. He just never comes off as boss material. So let's move on to Patsy. Even the actor who plays him feels Patsy was involved in Tony's death precisely because Patsy's twin brother Philly was killed on the orders of Tony, something which infuriates Patsy. Of course, he said he got over it, but you never truly get over something like that. In fact, he drunkenly almost killed Tony before settling for pissing in his pool. Patsy gets screwed over repeatedly with promotions. When Christopher gets put in charge of Paulie's crew instead of him, when Vito dies and Carlo is up, and when Carlo flips and Paulie becomes captain of that crew. I mean, how much more betrayal can Patsy take? He also openly shows dissent on occasion, like here.
Thank you. That was great.
And you just never really get the feeling that this guy would care much if he woke up one day and was told Tony died and he reports to new management. There is also the thing with his son. Carlo's son Jason was arrested for selling X, and Carlo goes missing, presumably flipping. Jason was close to Patsy's son, who was only introduced around 2 episodes pre the finale, and there must surely have been a reason for his inclusion so late in the show. When the Parisis have dinner with Tony's family, with Patsy's son engaged to Meadow, there is an awkwardness in the air, and it isn't just because of Mrs. Parisi's inability to tell jokes. They look nervous, and even more so when Tony asks why Jason Parisi isn't here. Tony knows Carlo is singing like a canary, and he calls Jason Gervasi Jason Parisi's pal, and he says he heard Carlo's Jason got into some trouble. Patsy and Tony exchange looks. Patsy wants his wife to shut up and not discuss it, but Tony has clearly put something in the air, an insinuation maybe, that he thinks Patsy might also flip to save his son if he is caught up in Jason Gervasi's shenanigans, if he's already been arrested maybe. After all, why isn't he here? Just the idea that Tony suspects Patsy's son is in trouble could be enough to flip, putting both father and son at risk of being whacked. Tony killed Philly, he killed his close friend, the OG Santa Claus, he killed a captain over a horse, so I don't want to hear in the comment section that he wouldn't have had Patsy clipped because their children were getting married.
End of subject!
I don't feel Patsy is the kind of character to orchestrate such a conspiracy, but if he was approached and saw which way the wind was blowing, saw that his own life was in danger, he'd agree to cross sides, playing a passive but meaningful role in the cabal against Tony. That could provide an explanation in case people ask, why did he take so long to take revenge for his brother? In fact, through his son, who would be told by Meadow, Patsy may have informed New York where Tony was staying at Holston's, though that isn't really important because by that point Tony wasn't in hiding and could easily have been followed. By marrying the soon-to-be deceased mob boss's daughter, Patsy would feel symbolically closer to the throne. It's plausible that he thought he would be put in charge, but New York would assure Paulie that Patsy would also be taken out, and in turn Butch could have Paulie killed and absorbed Jersey. In other words, in this world of rats and turncoats, they all betray each other. A major hole in this theory is that Patsy is shot at by New York goons and he actively shoots back. There's no way this is staged, we're not making a western here. So how do you explain this? Well, maybe the shooters didn't know it was him and were in the moment. Maybe they didn't care and were willing to take him out because he was a low-level Jersey guy anyway, even if they did make a deal with him. Or maybe they didn't even know he was involved as New York only dealt with Paulie directly, who sold Patsy out, so Paulie, would be the only one in Jersey after the fact to know he betrayed Tony, which is a very Paulie thing to do. New York quite simply possibly didn't even know Patsy was involved. Which brings us to Paulie himself. Paulie is a snake and the ultimate survivor. He flirted with the idea of becoming boss before, of betraying Tony, and had links, however superficial, with New York. Paulie is established as being terrified of dying, and when it's all said and done, if he's cornered one day and told to meet with Butch, who tells him what the score is, and he can either end up dead like Tony, or become the new boss, or become a puppet head with New York swallowing up Jersey like Ginny swallows up chocolate bars, do you really see Paulie not being swayed by new management? He would do anything to survive, and plus, he had plenty of reasons to betray Tony, not least because of the way Tony treated him in the later seasons. Pine Barrens, Tony favouring Ralph in the sit-down, the pie-on-my painting fiasco, Bobby leapfrogging Paulie in rank, and of course, the scene where Tony came close to killing Paulie on the boat. We all know Paulie was superstitious. We all know about the 3 o'clock thing. We know he was woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and Tony was sitting at Paulie's 3 o'clock when he was considering murdering him. Maybe he put all this together and he knew the jig was up and Tony's gotta go, taking Christopher's 3 o'clock warning when on the boat. Something is off about Paulie in the final few episodes, something which makes sense if you watch knowing he already knows Tony has been marked for death. His sad expression when being offered the promotion, grimacing when coming out of the Bing, extended shots of him looking pensive. Of course, many of these things can be explained away, like him simply being agitated in a time of war when many of the old crew members are dead after he managed to beat cancer. But that's the brilliance of The Sopranos. Things often work both ways or multiple ways. Paulie's panicked expression when Tony offers the captain role to Patsy is often used as evidence for this theory, another thing which works both ways. Either it hurt his ego, or because he knows Patsy is involved, he thinks Patsy might get cold feet about whacking Tony now that Mr. Mob Boss is giving him his dues, so Paulie quickly accepts the job which he believes is cursed. There are two curious scenes between him and Patsy. One in the urinals where Paulie says, "It's all yours," presumably referencing the Phil Leotardo hit, and another where Paulie says to him, "You'll be fine, don't worry about it," and saying, "Don't discuss this until we're in the Pisha do." I mean, if they were simply talking about Phil, why would Patsy be worried? Unless I guess they were talking about Carlo's son and Patsy was talking to Paulie about how uncomfortable he felt with his son known to be close to Carlo's son. But it's all a bit off, but it fits perfectly if you imagine they're conspiring against Tony. Not to mention about the scene where Patsy is pissing like a racehorse. The last time we saw him pissing was when he was plotting to kill Tony. Paulie saying "it's all yours" could mean he's done his part in the conspiracy and Patsy's part is coming next, or maybe he's insinuating that the big seat will soon be Patsy's. In that dream that Paulie had when he is approached by the traitor pussy, Paulie says, "When my time comes, tell me, will I stand up?" This could be in reference to dying or getting whacked, being able to take it standing like a man, but it could also work with this theory, i.e., when they approach me to betray Tony, will I be loyal to my capo? It works, doesn't it? I know, I must have been top of my fucking class, right? There's no need to thank me.
Thank you. That was great.
When New York are discussing who to take out, Butch shuts down the idea of clipping Paulie as they only want upper management, which is strange, seeing as though Paulie has been around for ages and he is one of Tony's closest men. Maybe Butch didn't make this decision because Carmine thought the world of Paulie, but because he had already made a deal with him. This all takes place in a barbershop that Butch has, and Paulie walks into the Bing at one point with a whole box of scissors, which he may have gotten from Butch at the barbershop. The box of scissors could also be symbolism for 30 pieces of silver, and there's more Judas symbolism, with Paulie seeing what he thinks is a vision of the Virgin Mary. There's more scissor talk, with Paulie killing his mother's friend, whose husband left her a fortune from selling barber scissors. When the mob wives are doing their home movie thing, Rosalie talks to Adriana about Judas and the Last Supper, which is a very similar ending to The Sopranos. Tony has a Last Supper with his family. And who is the Judas in this situation? It can only be one man. Tony mentions that the cat who always stares at the photo of Christopher could possibly smell a rat in the wall, and this same cat approaches Paulie in his final scene, implying he's a rat. Another clue is that in the Funhouse dream, Tony envisions a scene that The Godfather 3 shamelessly ripped off, where Silvio says,
Our true enemy has yet to reveal himself.
and after this we are shown Tony killing Paulie and the screen goes black. And finally, in the last sit down, Paulie shakes Butch's hand behind Tony's back as everyone leaves, when there was no real need for Butch to shake his hand. So there you have it, my evidences for why I think a combination of Butch, Paulie and Patsy had Tony killed. What do you think happened at that diner? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.
Thank you. That was great.